Okay, it's the Husk Unfiltered Radio made in Brighton. On this week's show, well, we've been away for a while, haven't we? We had another guest lined up. That kind of guest fell through. I'll talk about that another time with you. Then I've been down. I was off work and I was in Devon for a little bit. And I was also lazy for a little bit. So we actually recorded today's show quite a while ago, but I just didn't have time to sort of do all the uploading and everything. Anyway, it's here now. And we've got Sascha Cooper on the show today. Sascha Cooper describes herself as a creative entrepreneur. She's into absolutely loads of things, does absolutely loads of things, but we did spend quite a significant portion of this interview talking about her more out there beliefs, I suppose. She's a medium, she's a Christo-paganism, which is a sort of hybrid of Christianity and paganism, which was a bit of a new one on me. So we talked about all this kind of stuff and these kind of belief systems and got into all of that. And it's an interesting interview. We've had some complaints. We had a complaint from Carlos in the Barron North. He said, "Why aren't you playing the original jingle?" Well, what I'm going to do is there's going to be a show coming up. I might do a music show as a one-off and we'll play the original jingle for that. I'm also thinking I might do some sort of reflection show. I don't know. There's going to be some stuff. None of you are happy, are you? You're never bloody happy. There's only 6 of you and you just sort of take it in turns to have a moan. Anyway, here's Sascha. Have a listen. Right, Sascha, well, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us. You've traipsed here all the way from the old Steen.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. Now, we've got you on superfan David Cripps, Mr. Cripps.
Yes.
Yeah, he was
Hello,
the man.
David.
He was the man from the other dimension that put me in touch with you.
Uh-huh.
So we thought we'd get you on, but we don't really know each other. I have seen you at a couple of... I saw you were in... Love in the Harbour.
Yes.
I saw that one.
That's right. It's Grace.
Yeah, that's right. And I've listened to, obviously, the Black Door stuff that your guys are still working on. But there's loads of other stuff you do. So we're looking at your website. Now, you describe yourself as a creative entrepreneur. What's that? Run us through that.
Right, so a creative entrepreneur, it's basically an easier way of saying I'm an actress, dancer, psychic reader, medium, theatre director, writer, radio presenter, hair and makeup artist, and holistic insightful life coach. Currently training to be a stand-up comedian as well, and hopefully get some nails in as well at some point.
Some nails?
Yeah, nail designs,
right,
nail
okay.
technicians.
Yeah, okay. Not like banging a nail in.
Oh, no. Not quite that handy, no.
Not going to take up carpentry as well.
Oh, no.
And this, so you're very busy because I think I saw you at a poetry night and you're going to read us a poem a bit later. Have you brought something with you?
Yes, I'll have to switch my phone
That's
to
all right.
do that.
No, we can do that, that's fine. And you messaged me the other day and you were like, "Oh, sorry, I didn't get back to you. I was running a quiz."
That's right. Quiz host as well.
Yeah. So what's all this? Where's all this energy coming from?
I don't like sticking to the one subject, to be honest. And I mean, it's a strange one because when I was growing up, all I ever wanted to be was an actress. But you had to do dance and singing in order to get into stage school, training wise, get all the qualifications. And eventually, as you grow older, you find yourself getting into a position where you want to spread your wings a bit more, and you find there's all these other things out there, especially when the psychic work came in, because it was very strange on that score. But I'll talk about
we'll
that
be going
a bit
into
later.
that, yeah, absolutely.
But
we'll be getting into that.
you do find yourself getting into a position where you want to expand your horizons, you want to spread your wings, you want to do all sorts. And I tend to find if I stick to the one thing, I get so bored, and I do mean bored. And the best way to really do that is to be an entrepreneur. And so many people in the past have said to me, "Sascha, why not just stick with the one thing, fine-tune it?" And as I say to them, no, mate, I'd be bored rigid. And anyway, why not combine everything? So I guess in a weird sort of way, I was ahead of my time before the term creative entrepreneur was even invented. I only really heard about that term back in, what was it, 2017, 18?
Okay, it's a new one on me, I think.
Yeah, so it's been floating around the ether in the entrepreneur world for a while, but it didn't really come to the fore for me till about 2017 to 18. And the reason why I class myself as that now is because everything that I do overlaps, although they're different. I have this one message, and that is I empower and encourage all to feel good from the inside and out, no matter what method is used, whether creative or holistic.
With all this stuff you're doing, Sascha, do you take much downtime? Do you find yourself, because I think I'm quite creative and I am into different things, you know, I don't just do one creative outlet, but I also have vast amounts of time and I'm just kind of lazy and scrolling endlessly through YouTube. Is this something you have, or are you just on the go all the time? You strike me as someone that's on the go all the time.
Well, since lockdown, obviously things have gotten a lot quieter.
Yeah.
So naturally you do have to fill the time, as it were. But to be honest, since things have been opening up again, it's been actually really good to feel busy again, and also to fill the time that you're not working, if anything. So at the moment, I'm working to improve my comedy skills, going via the form of being a stand-up comedian. I have done forms of comedy before on stage where it's just been performative comedy, and I've done one sketch show in the past, but that's been, character acting and sort of comedy acting. So when you do that, it's a strange one, because you keep thinking to yourself, hang on a minute though, shouldn't an actual comedian be doing this rather than a mere actress? So when I was cast in this, I don't know. Although I loved it, there was a huge part of me that felt like a fraud. So that's the reason why I'm doing the stand-up comedy, so that it's not that I want to become a stand-up comedian. It's more that I feel then I've got more of a backbone when I'm tackling comedy on stage. And if I want to have a look into further details as to writing comedy and whatnot, it's been fantastic in that respect, especially when you're writing scripts. You
seem very motivated. Have you always been like this, or is it a new thing?
Not always. I mean, you do. I've always been determined to succeed in everything that I do. But if you were asking me that several years ago, I would have gone, I'm motivated, but I don't know where I'm going.
Right, okay.
You go through certain phases where you really don't know what your purpose is anymore, and you lose your confidence, especially in the creative industries.
So you've had a moment like that? You've had moments like this?
Yes.
Yeah. And how did you come out of it? How did you turn the corner?
It was, well, believe it or not, it was being stuck in a very, very bad emotional rut work-wise, where although I've always been self-employed, there was this one period where I was working in a call centre, and then I made the transition back over to where I used to do readings at the time, which was Bell, Book and Candle. And without me realising it, because I'd been stuck there for goodness knows how long in a negative atmosphere, as it were. I won't go into the details about it.
Bell, Book and Candle, you talking
Bell,
about?
Book and Candle,
right, interesting.
But put it this way.
I should just say for listeners, this was a shop in Brighton that used, and other things it had, but it's sort of magic shop, I suppose you might say.
More like a esoteric shop, yes, which was run by a lady who was nice, but let's just say that the way she ran things was very negative, and not one that should have been running one of those shops.
They had a flotation tank there, didn't they?
Yes. We they put it this way. I did go over to that for a while, but then when I started training to be a life coach, I started then thinking to myself, hold on a minute, something is not right here.
Right.
And it's when it's a bit like what I'm doing with the comedy side of things. When you're doing the readings, you want to be giving reassurance to those that you are a qualified professional of sorts, because it's been handed down, this gift. You don't have that professional backup. I know you can get them, but they're not always genuine. So I thought, okay, one of the ways to do this is maybe get a life coach certificate, because it might as well be a certified life coach session that I'm doing at times in the readings. And when I started training, it was bizarre, because I literally saw different changes within myself. I wanted to lose weight, and when the weight started to go at the time, it was strange. It was like I was literally looking back on myself and going, hang on a minute, Sascha, what the hell are you doing? You're letting yourself be snowed under by this negativity. Why the hell are you there?
Right.
So I had to try and work out what on earth to do next. And luckily, a friend of mine came up who also ran at the time her own sort of esoteric and sort of specialised goods in the marina. She had this little place there, and she was going to open into readings. She remembered me going in several times and said, look, I've got a spot open for readings. Would you like one? I said, absolutely. And I thought to myself, right, this is an opportunity to do so. It was a beautiful shop called Pebble Beach, and this was a perfect way for me to transition. So for a while, I'm not joking, I was going between Cocoon, as it was then, and Pebble Beach.
All right.
Trying not to let this person basically know that I was doing this, because even though I'm self-employed, this lady felt this felt you were obliged to her, and you were employed by her, and you had to do this, and it was like, oh, for God's sake, you silly woman.
When you talk about readings, is this tarot readings? How are you?
Tarot readings, mediumship, palmistry, and psychometry, crystal ball, angel cards, that kind of thing.
Let's come back to all this. We're totally going to get into all of that.
Yeah, but it was because of that Pebble Beach that I was eventually able to say, sorry, it's time to move on. I gave my month's notice, went over to Pebble Beach, and it was because of Pebble Beach that I've really finalised the whole creative entrepreneur side of things.
I was looking through a baby name book the other day, and your name came up, and it said Saviour of Mankind.
Ugh, yes. I don't know why half the time.
Are you fulfilling that role or not really?
Definitely. I don't know why half the time I protect men, but no, it's actually, I think it needs to be reworded, actually, because whilst I do protect others, it's not necessarily men, it's all sexes.
Right.
And I believe that's part of a path. And, there is a thing that your name is a huge significance, basically. I mean, I've always known that translation because it's Russian, and it's also Russian for my mum's name, Alexandra, although she didn't realise it when she named me at the time.
Right.
So, yeah, but I do believe implicitly that we need to protect each other. We need to look out for each other. And, if I can protect those that I meet who are vulnerable, or who are creatively inclined or holistically inclined, that need that extra support. As long as I look after myself.
Well, that's always the most important thing, isn't it?
Absolutely.
That's got to be where it starts.
That's correct. And as a coach, I would say this implicitly as well. And this is something I had to learn the hard way, because at one point, I wasn't giving any time to myself. I literally had to keep going after work to get myself known in all industries, and to keep building up all the qualifications. But there does come a point, especially when I was training as a coach, that I learned the significance of literally taking that step back and going, actually, if you don't look after yourself, how on earth are you going to look after other people?
I couldn't agree more with that. That's absolutely, that's a lesson I think I learned in my life about 5 years ago. It's a good lesson. Now, let's get into it then, because we've had a number of people on this show, and a thing that I notice is I get this impression that, not every guest that we've had, but I sometimes ask guests about what they sort of feel is going on, behind the theatre of reality, if you like what's really going on. And I get the impression that people sort of sense something. They maybe have some idea that something is not quite how it's not quite straight, right? There's something going on, but they're afraid to articulate it or don't know how to articulate it. And people are very much, well, you know, like I go with the science.
Of course.
David was saying this to me the other week. But I always think the thing is the science, like the sort of the very fringes of science are pointing to some absolutely mad things. Now we've got you on. You're going to be willing to talk about this. What are your beliefs? Where are you at? What's going on?
Okay.
In the universe.
Right. How the hell? That is a big question.
Let me start with this. You messaged me and you said, you used the phrase which was new to me, Christo-paganism.
Christo-paganism.
My apologies. Can you explain that? Because I've not heard this phrase before, and I thought that these were, in the 90s, sort of mortal enemies. Is that...
No, absolutely
Fire away.
Wrong. Christo-paganism is basically a mixture of Christianity and paganism at the same time. The only reason that I've been drawn to that path is because I was brought up Church of England. And, you know, I've always been told by my parents and my late grandmother, who's one of my guides, you know, you don't bully other religions, you don't bring harm to anybody. Everybody is off the same path. And I've always been a great believer in something that the late Mother Teresa once said, and that is, we all have different paths, but we end up in the same place. Mm-hmm. And as long as we stick to that true path of goodness and don't deliberately harm anybody, you're on the right track. And I've always believed that. But massively.
In Christianity, you have sort of one God.
That's
and
right.
In paganism, there's all sorts of deities all over the bloody place.
Yes.
How do they sort of fit together?
Well, what we've got to understand is paganism was there long before Christianity. All right, and so there's always been a dualistic aspect to it. It's what we call a dualistic faith. So you've got a god and a goddess, horned god, goddess, and of course, when the Christians came in, they, you know, historically, you know, you look at how things have changed. What they did was they pretty much kept the same pagan sort of celebrations that we know today as Easter, Halloween, all that kind of thing. But obviously in paganism, if you're talking Easter, you've got Ostara, you've got Beltane, which is the May Day celebrations. You've got Samhain, which is Halloween, or the pagan New Year. And then you've got Christmas, or Yule. So you can see it all crosses over, but the difference is the dates are very slightly different. Yeah. So if we take Yule, for instance. So Yule, in the pagan calendar, falls on the 21st of December. And that's when the light comes back. That's when, you know, we have the light return to us, when the sun god comes to us again. In Christianity, you've got the 25th of December, and it's the same thing. Yeah. Jesus being born, the bringer of light.
Yeah.
See how they're all crossed over?
They moved that, didn't they, as well? Because he definitely, I think the evidence is he probably wasn't born at that time of year anyway.
That's right. You know, if the research is to be believed, then historically, yes. But in terms of faith, that sort of date-wise, it still gives people something to believe in. And what the main message is, it's the light coming back. You know, from the dark, we've got the light coming back.
So there's this idea of like ritual and repeating seasonal events happening, seasonal celebrations happening. And these things are all sort of important. In a symbolic way, but are they also important in a real way? Are there really gods, or are they just sort of symbolic ideas? What's going on there?
Depends on what you believe, to be honest. And there's a reason why I'm saying that, because what I believe may not be relevant to somebody else's path. And I believe very much, as long as you don't go harming anybody else and it's benefiting you, you do your thing, I'll do my thing. But
so do you think, though, that your beliefs are sort of creating a universe in which your beliefs are true? Other people might have other beliefs, and it's a sort of completely different reality, but you're just also able to exist together? Or?
Yeah, of course. There is a theme called coexisting, and which social media on and off does come up with every so often. And when we are coexisting, it doesn't matter what path you're from, we are all going to the same place.
What is that place we're going to, Sascha?
You can call it heaven, you can call it the Summerlands, you can call it what you like, but essentially it's heaven.
What about hell? Is there a hell?
We're living in it now. We're actually living in it now. The whole thing with hell is more of a scare tactic. It has been, I should make this clear, it has been portrayed by some aspects of the Christian faith historically as a scare tactic to keep everybody in check.
Right.
That if you don't do this, you're going to go to hell. If you do this, you're going to go to heaven. I don't believe in scare tactics. What I do believe, and this is where Christo-paganism really comes into play, we believe very much in the here and now. As a coach, I believe you can either create your own heaven or you can create your own hell. If you are deliberately putting out negative thoughts into the world and you're deliberately treating people to that negativity, you're creating your own hell. Whether you're prepared to get out of that hell is another matter. And that's where I've come in occasionally as coach and medium and reader. All I can do really is give guidance, and I can say to people, look, by changing this little bit, you can actually have the greatest potential to get a better result there, or you can do that there. But they've got to be willing to change, and that's where my message comes in. If you're not prepared to change from the inside out, how are you going to create your personal heaven?
Do you think that if somebody is maybe filled with negativity or some sort of, horrible emotion or something, you're saying that that's sort of going to affect the world, right, and then affect them? Is that just a series of sort of subconscious psychological chains that go through, or is there some sort of way that we don't even understand that energy is actually out there in an unmeasurable way, causing extra damage, completely unseen damage? Or is it a psychological process, is what I'm saying, I suppose, or is there some sort of supernatural element to it as well?
Right. There's a bit of a bone of contention about that sort of statement, actually. I do believe a lot of the time it is psychological and unconscious. There have been a few times where I've seen people who claim they've been possessed by a demon or something like that, and I'm not saying that it doesn't happen, because it does happen, but the thing is, I'm not qualified to deal with that side of things. If you are worried about something not being emotionally right or anything like that, then one of the first things to do, seek professional help, seek a counsellor, a life coach and a medium and reader, or actress, dancer, etc. We're not qualified to basically fully untangle every deep psychological connection that there is.
Yeah.
You have to be prepared to put the work in yourself. We're only here as a guide. And if there is deep-rooted psychological things going on, then what I would say to anybody is, first and foremost, go to see somebody like a counsellor. Don't rely fully just on, the esoteric or the holistic, because, unless that person is actually a qualified mental health nurse, like a friend of mine is, or a counsellor like my aunt is, the whole thing is, we're just here as a guide. But unless you have that counsellor qualification or something, you can't untangle that. What
I'm sensing here is that you've really spent some of your own time thinking about the ethics of what you're doing and where it's appropriate to be doing something and where it isn't.
Absolutely.
How does that then make you feel because I think in this sort of pro-science, cynical age that we're living in, arguably, the kind of things that you do have come under quite a lot of attack. You've been, the field of sort of mediumship and this is often accused of being fraudulent, and that people are just in it to make money, and it's very cynical, and you're all cold reading, or you're maybe consciously cold reading, or maybe you're just subconsciously cold reading. But here you are talking about sort of trying to assist people, and you've obviously thought through the ethics of it on your own terms. How do you feel about this sort of attack that you come under?
The attack that you speak about, I've actually experienced myself, and I'm not going to say the medium's name, but let's just say at the age of 18 in Plymouth, I went to this particular person before they became famous. This person's no longer with us, but before they became famous, I actually went to this person at the age of 18 to see what a reading would be like. Mm-hmm. Especially as I was finding my own way and finding a lot of things, falling into place. So there was in the sense that I didn't realize I had a gift at all. I thought, when I was told that actually, just from that simple instance of, just doing a fortune-telling stint for my school at the age of 18 for their school fete, I was told that actually what I thought was acting was actually speaking truth through spirit. Mm-hmm. And that was only just by a simple setup. So obviously, when you go around all the fates, etc., you want to be sure if this is real. And of course, when you're young, the first thing that you think of, well, how about if I go to see somebody who does this for real? Maybe they can help.
Yeah.
So I went to this person, and the only way I could describe it is, when something's not right. Mm-hmm. Let's just say the one thing that I remember from that reading was being told that I would be married at 30, divorced at 33, dead by the time I turned 37 with 3 kids.
Right, well, that's cheery.
Yeah, very cheery. And yeah, so for one thing, I've certainly not been married. I've not been married to a sailor, which is also what was predicted.
Right.
I don't have 3 kids, and I'm 40. I'm still here.
Do you have cats, Sascha?
No. We used to.
Right.
We used to years ago. I think my family had something like, I seem to remember my family having 7 cats at one point.
Yeah.
But I only remember one, which was called Rawdon Crawley. It was a beautiful tabby cat. But this person, when you're told at 18 that you're going to die in your 30s,
yeah,
you think to yourself, hang on a minute, is this what reading's about? And I asked around, and it turns out what this person was doing, he was actually, and I will say it was a he, this person basically was doing what is now known as scare tactics. And these are used in order to, hopefully, hook people back in, especially if you're vulnerable. All I can say is, I thought to myself at the time, if that's the way a reading is, I'm not going to be part of that.
Yeah.
So when I explored even further at the age of 19, especially when I was told that there was a running theme in my family of Romani Gypsy descent, the first thing I automatically think of as a Christian at the time, I thought, oh, I'm going to hell. That's literally what I thought. And although I kind of did readings, it was weird. I did not feel comfortable, especially with what I was being given. And I thought at the time, I can't be doing readings if I'm Christian because I'm going to go to hell. That's where I looked into things like paganism and Wicca. But I'm not joking. Even on the Wicca journey, when I was in London and I graduated as an actress, it was weird. I ended up going to a Wiccan sort of meetup in London. And even there, even though I said to them, I'm seeking to change, they told me to go away. We don't want your sort here.
Oh, right, okay.
And I will never forget 2 people who spotted what was going on, and they said, Sascha, you're going to come with us. We're going to tell you a little bit more about what's going on.
Yeah.
Their names were John Randall, who's sadly no longer with us, and his wife, Maria Marlowe. And they were the ones who really started me on my journey because I explained the situation. The first thing that they said was basically, look, it's clear that you don't want to leave the Christian path, but you like the spiritual elements. What we're going to give you is this advice. and that stuck with me forever. They said, take your time. Class yourself as eclectic until you find the path that is right for you. And it's that sticks in my mind. Go with what is right for you. So fast forward a few years, did a lot of research and soul searching, moved down to Brighton 14 years ago. 13 years ago, I meet a lovely lady down here called Mariella, who actually gave me more of a grounding as to what paganism was about, and more about the myths and the legends and the gods and the goddesses associated with each different path. And I also had an opportunity to join her coven, but something in me said, no, I'm not going to do that. Not going to do that. Something in me just basically said to me, no, that's not right. So I said this to her, and I said, look, I don't want to waste your time. It feels like I'm stuck between two forces, I said. I love Christ. You know, I can't lie, I said. I can't change that. But in order to do the readings, I said, I can't fully well be a Christian if that's the case. So she says to me with a very wry smile, why not have a look into Christo-paganism? And I said, what on earth do you mean? And all she did, gave me a sly wink, a little nudge at the side of her nose, and a sly smile. And she said, you'll see. So I looked into it. The first thing that I did, and I remember this was 13 years ago. This was in December. And it was just approaching Christmas. I searched Christo-paganism very randomly one day on the net. And sure enough, all this information comes up about fusing the two sides. And the more I read, the more it resonated. And literally what clinched it was, you're still working with the Holy Trinity. In the Christian faith, it's Father, Son, Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
In Christo-paganism, or in this instance, the pagan one, you've got universe or spirit, horned god, goddess. As long as you kept Jesus as your horned god, you could choose any female in the Bible to complement him. And the first person that I automatically went to, just because of two reasons. One, the historical aspect of them being married, and two, the fact that she was human, and like him, she was human, and that's Mary Magdalene. And for me, those two, gosh, even as I speak, they send shivers down my spine. It's lovely because they are the true spiritual family. Jesus didn't think about denominations and religions. You know, historically, he could have grown up a Jew, for all we know.
Why is it that the fundamentally moral messages of religions and spiritual practices always seem to just get corrupted? Why does that happen?
You tell me. It could be to do with all sorts of things.
I think it's because humans just all have a dark side, and
could be.
It's a strange one. What was I going to ask you next? I've lost. That just threw me. That did. No,
that was only supposed to be a throwaway thing. But if you really want an insightful answer to that, I think it's a lot of time. It is, as you say, to do with this darkness in a weird sort of way, and it's ego. In fact, I'm just going to say it as it is. It's ego. We all have an ego. It's absolutely fair enough. We all have an ego. But it's how we use it, which is a different matter. We have to use ego a lot in order to try and move forwards in life. But if you overuse it, or you egg it, or you put too much power into it, then obviously the money comes in and all kinds of other things come in, and that's where you can see the shifts in the church. It's like with any religion. Soon as you get religious buildings, or if you get any of an opportunity just to make money, and there's also other practices that have been potentially recorded going on behind the scenes, which I won't go into because it is quite upsetting. But let's just say that the morality behind some of these people's actions because
Very
of
questionable.
ego
Yeah.
trips.
Very questionable.
Exactly. It's more than questionable.
With your, let's move on from that, because that is on the edge of quite a dark topic.
Yeah,
for the
it is. But no, it's
I'm
true.
quite tired today, so.
Oh, that's fine. But no, but it's true though, you know.
Yeah.
But if we use the ego correctly,
Yeah.
by working with a good intent, good purpose, you live a good life, you help others as well as yourself, you get the balance right, you're sorted.
Mediumship, is this communicating with the dead? Is that?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay, let's get into this. So, how does this work? What you get? Are the sort of conscious, articulate spirits of all of our ancestors out there, ready to be connected to? Where are they? In heaven? Are they in some undefined spiritual realm? What's going on?
Okay, there are some spirits who will not fully move on, or who haven't properly moved on, who will be in limbo. And in limbo's kind of that in-between state.
Not actually doing the limbo.
No, definitely not doing the limbo. Although I know there are sorry, I got my guides literally laughing. Is that they've just gone, we wish. But no, the whole thing is with you can get spirit from anywhere. You can get spirits who are down here. We could be having somebody who's literally on the chair that's opposite me at the moment. You could have somebody communicating from limbo or the in-between state, or you could have somebody from heaven, or somebody who just needs help moving on. And they could come through in lots of different ways. You know, a lot of mediums tend to use clairvoyance, which is seeing. It's seeing, and so you could actually physically see them as if I'm speaking to you in the room.
Yeah.
There's clairaudience, which I know a lot of people use as well. That's hearing. That's hearing somebody speak. And it can even... So I collect clairaudience occasionally by a little vibration in my left ear at the moment. That's only come in certainly since lockdown. That's come in more since lockdown. I'm more what's called a clairsentient. So I get energy. I get emotions.
Okay.
I don't see or hear, but I sense. And I work with that energy, basically.
Right, okay. So it's not words or language that you're hearing, it's just sort of...
It's energy that I translate into words.
Right, okay.
That's the best way I can describe it. It's odd.
And do you have people come to see you? Do you sort of like, have you got a good hit rate here? Are you like, is it always possible, or is there sometimes where you're just like, I'm sorry, it's just not happening? I'm a bit hungover.
Yeah, actually, it's a strange one with mediumship, because a lot of people think, a common misconception, shall we say, is that you're automatically able to connect with spirit, you know, just like that, drop of a hat, no problem, yeah, you know, and Auntie Margaret's going to tell me where she's hidden her money.
Where's the gold, Margaret?
Yeah, but it does not work like that.
Yeah.
I work from a strong moral perspective. If there's a spirit, if there is a connection, then obviously I will work with that, but I try and get as much confirmation as I can from what I'm getting. And if they, you know, and I always check in with the client, I go, is that making sense? Or, you know, if it is, great, we'll work with that. And it means that I'm doing something right. So it's kind of like an affirmation, but at the same time, it's like, okay, that's fine. It's almost like a reality check for me, just in case I've gone off on the wrong tangent or whatever it is. If I have gone off on the wrong tangent and I've still got a connection, you know, that usually for me indicates, okay, right, if it's not relevant to you now, that could be something that will happen in the future. So that is a message to bear it in mind, you know, that kind of thing. But if there is what I call dead spirit air, where nothing happens, then there's no point in pushing that. Because if I was, then what would happen is I'd then fall into that territory of cold reading for the sake of wanting a payment.
Yeah.
I don't work like that, and I know a few people who do, and I don't appreciate it at all.
Do you think that you would know how to do that? Do you think you'd be able to do that? Do you get a sense of how you could do that?
Do what? Sorry.
Do you think you would know how to cold read somebody?
I wouldn't know if I tried, to be honest. Put it this way, I think the closest I'd ever get to a cold reading is if I'm playing a medium on stage,
right,
if it's part of a play. You know, like Madame McCarthy, for instance, in the Noel Coward play where she appears. That's a very different sort of cold read.
Yeah.
Because what you're doing is you're playing a character.
Yeah.
That's the closest I personally get to it. If I'm actually playing a medium and I'm sending myself up, I'm technically setting myself up where that's concerned. But if I'm genuinely working with a client, this is why I also do life coaching, because if there is no connection going on, that can mean that they're not ready to hear a message. Yeah. It can mean that it's not the right time for a message. So I have to make that clear. Basically, and what's the point in pushing it just for the sake of a few pennies? Do you know what I mean?
I do. Now, you're obviously quite certain, I think, that there's things going on after we die. There's other realms, but maybe we can't necessarily use language to describe them, but there's something out there. I think that's where you're at. But we're living now in a world, it seems to me, we're increasingly where these sorts of beliefs are really on the fade, at least here in the sort of West. Do you think that's? Do you think this is sort of where we're going? That we're just going into this spiritless void of science and futurism, or will we just get a return? Are we just on some sort of dip from it at the moment?
I personally believe we're going to eventually go somewhere where we coexist. I know I've brought that word up again, coexist. But I do believe what we need to work towards is a balanced state where if science works for you, fantastic. And I know a lot of amazing scientists who really do believe in that side of things as well. Yeah. Although there are scientists who actually do explore the whole thing with spiritualism, and they say actually there is a science behind that, and they've explored that side of things, which I do find fascinating. But there's also people like myself who respect the fact that there's facts in science, but I think the facts in science need to be used where it needs to be used rather than
building a bridge.
Yes, absolutely. But those who are more on the esoteric and the holistic side of you, where I'm coming from, and the creative side, if that vibration feels good to that person and they're not harming people, it's the same on the science aspect. If the science people are not deliberately harming anybody, great. If the holistic and the creative industries are not harming anybody deliberately, great. If you can get the balance right, we can coexist. And I would like to believe we will eventually get there. But right now, I think especially since lockdown, I think a lot of people's perspectives have been challenged, especially with not being able to go out and not being able to socialize in the usual way that we've been used to. I mean, it's not like we're speaking here and now. We've come so used to being online that, in many ways we're still adapting to being back in the room with people, so to speak. But there's also nothing wrong with technology aiding that as well. Strangely enough, some clients that I work with, they were using things like Zoom and WhatsApp and all that kind of thing even before lockdown. Some of my best clients are, they're not even based in Brighton. They're in Kent, they're in London, they're all over the place. And especially now, since lockdown, I did find that whilst some areas completely dried up, like the dance, the other areas, and this is why I love being an entrepreneur as well, because there are bits that took off. We have this saying, you go where the money is, you go where the vibe is. And at that point, everybody needed readings, everybody needed coaching, everybody needed a form of entertainment, even though it was not face to face. And that side of things, whilst everything else was really quiet, that took off. And I tell you what, that was a lucky position to be in, because whilst everything else was really quiet, at least there were 1 or 2 or 3 aspects of everything that I do that continued. And there were many people who couldn't even continue. And, you know, there were those who weren't even lucky to get the government grant.
Oh, yeah, it's been absolutely horrendous for some people, and the life of Riley for some people.
That's
arguably.
Right. Yeah.
I do know some people that have had a lot of time off on a lot of money, and they've been quite happy. Well, and I don't blame them for that, because obviously you take what you can get. But
and that's what I mean as well, Barry. The perspective's changed. So even if you were in a comfortable position, you learned, you know, a lot of people that I spoke to learned the bonus of just slowing down.
Yeah.
Just being at home, being at one with your personal surroundings, rather than being constantly out there, maybe with people that they didn't like to associate with. But the fact that they could do it from online, at home, in the comfort of their own home, you know, it gave them that extra protection. There were also those who took some time to think, if they were already slow enough, hang on a minute, what can I do to change my life? What can I do to change things around?
What have you taken from this
So
experience?
For me, it was an interesting one, because obviously I love keeping busy. I love keeping busy. But what it did for me was that it really made me appreciate even more so the art of just stopping, slowing down and taking that time. Obviously, it did get to a stage where there was too much of a downtime.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
But it definitely made me appreciate even more so that balance of having the best of both worlds. And that's really where I've come from it. And I've come out of it maybe a bit more sensitive. Not even maybe, I have. I've come out of this a lot more sensitive. And I am a woman who's going through perimenopause. I'm going to be very honest with you about that. Even though the doctors don't believe me, but that's a different story. Right, I know my body. Yeah. And that's the other thing as well that I've taken out of this. And that is learning to listen to my body, listen to my emotions. And if I know deep down, spiritually, physically, something's not right, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But it has made me want to take more risks. Like the stand-up comedy. I would never even have thought of doing that years ago. Yeah. Never. But yet, here I am. I'm on this course, and I've got a showcase coming up on the 16th of September this year. So it's like, oh, goodness me, hello. Different form of performance here.
Yeah. Is it the Comedia course?
No, that's Jill Edwards. No, I'm working with a lady called Lou, who works in she's also a coach, but she works more mindfully and that kind of thing. She can be very strict as well. She can be very supportive, and I love her for it. You know, and this is what I mean. It's the balance, and I think as we're getting used to things that are new, and I mean we're going to be at the Rialto on the 16th of December. December? What am I doing? I'm thinking way ahead into Yule. No, September. 16th of September at the Rialto. And it's lovely because it's a place I know. And and I've performed on that stage so many times, and it's absolutely lovely knowing that I'll be on familiar territory, and it's great. But I'll still be scared as hell because I mean this is stand-up comedy, you know, in a weird sort of way. You're going into another territory of being vulnerable because, you know, you're exposing your humour, as it were. And you know full well that it could fall flat at any given moment. It's like with mediumship. You know that the connection could fall flat at any given moment. But the big thing that connects the two? Trust. Trust what you feel, trust what you see, trust what you hear. Trust in yourself and you achieve greatest things. That's what my coaching mentor told me. That's what Judy Neem told me when she trained me as a makeup artist.
It sounds like good advice to me.
Yeah.
Let me finish off with this question that we've asked a few people that have been in Brighton. We've all been in Brighton for about the same amount of time, I guess, roughly. How do you feel like Brighton's changed over the time that you've been here?
Ooh. Interesting.
Is it for the better, for the worse?
I think it's a bit of both.
Yeah.
Actually, I mean, you're always going to get the bad areas of anywhere you go. I think culturally we have changed so much that we've almost become similar to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, certainly over time, especially with the Brighton Fringe. Now I think in the downside to that, though, is that there's too many choices. And whilst it's good having all sorts of other people coming in from outside of Brighton, the local talent then runs the risk of being pushed to the wayside, pushed to the side. When actually it should be like it was when I first moved down here 14 years ago, in the sense of it was just focusing on...
it was entirely that local people putting on anything, wasn't it?
That's
Fringe,
right.
yeah.
And you got to see the amazing talent without competition.
Yeah.
Whereas now it's like we're all having to compete against each other and against these outside companies that are coming in. And don't get me wrong, I love the outside companies that are coming in. But... what about more of the focus on the local talent? That's what I'd like to see more of, and, more of a chance for the locals to make themselves more prominent. And, even if it's just a part of the festival where for a week we have nothing but local talent, just to give us a chance to come back to where we were. That would be great. Same in a way with the spiritual things. I mean, we used to have a lot of spiritual shops, not just Bell Book and Candle, not just Cocoon, not just Pebble Beach. They used to be...
What was the one on St James's Street? And that was a right full-on one. That
that was Dragon's Gate.
That
was an occult shop. And that went years ago.
Yeah.
But the thing is, though, there was a spate... It's like with anything. There was a spate of spiritualist shops, but now we're very lucky if we hear... of one, and in fact there's only one left in the whole of Brighton, and it's actually in the North Lanes, actually no, there's two, I tell a lie, but they're pretty much kind of in opposite sort of tandems to each other. You've got Two Feathers, which has been here for years, and then you've got this other little sort of witchy spiritual shop, which is adorable. I love it, and it's kind of on the diagonal to Two Feathers. I mean, Two Feathers is the only major place now that does the readings per se, as long as you're kind of, hang on how to put it, as long as you come from a sort of native background, then they'll have a look at you. But there's now less of the shops that have the opportunities for face-to-face readings in a specialised shop. The closest I get to it now, if I'm doing my readings, it's either online or on the phone or face-to-face. But if I do face-to-face, it's usually at psychic fairs, which are outside of Brighton. We don't seem to have these anymore. And I also do them face-to-face in a little therapy centre, where I also do my coaching. But it seems to be perfect for that kind of thing as well, especially if people just want something that's private. Now, the plus side to that is if you don't want to be too distracted, with pretty shiny things, shall we say, and you then want something a little bit more neutral and a little bit more private, then obviously going into something like a therapy room that I hire out if people want that face-to-face, that for them is fantastic because it then gives them that sense of security. The downside to that, though, is because it's too neutral, you don't have all the quirkiness that some of these places have. And actually, apart from Two Feathers, if we're talking about esoteric shops, apart from Two Feathers, the other shop doesn't actually have room for readers at all. No. It's just a shop. Which is great, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that at all. But you do kind of think, maybe it's changing for a reason, in the sense we need to get back to basics. Maybe people just want the little thing once in a while of buying something and not necessarily having readings in shop as well. But maybe keeping the readings separate, maybe keeping coaching separate, maybe that's a good thing. Who knows?
We'll see where it all goes.
Yeah.
We'll see together. Now, so thank you very much for joining us on the show.
Oh, no worries.
You're a very busy person. You seem to have thought through the stuff that you're doing, which I think is a good thing.
Thank you.
We'll put up all the links to your website. Basically, the website's the main thing, isn't it?
That's great.
I think I spotted some YouTube thing earlier as well. It's been a colourful conversation.
Thank you.
We must wrap it up because I've got a dog in the other room who wants to go out.
Oh, bless.
You won't be very happy with me. But thanks very much for coming on the show. And yeah.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's been very enjoyable.